Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and I'm here today to talk about the new moon in Gemini on June 17th, 2023. This new moon is at 26 degrees of Gemini. It is happening on the same day that Saturn turns retrograde, and this new moon is making an aspect to Neptune that I think is very powerful, and it is in opposition to the galactic center. So we have a lot to talk about today, and I'm very excited about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about these aspects. Then I'm going to go through each one of the signs and talk about what house or environment this is happening in for you. These are based on whole sign Western astrology. So when I talk about a sign in a house, I'm talking about the rising sign. If you don't know your rising sign, please go to one of the free birth calculators on the internet. You just need your exact time and location of birth, and that'll help you determine this information. So let's jump right in. We recently experienced, when we had our May 5th lunar eclipse, we experienced the first moon cycle where we are having a full moon precede a new moon. And this is going to continue for about the next year or so. And I believe that this flip in the lunar cycle is a very benevolent energy that the universe is offering us, as it is giving us an illumination before we plant the seeds for our next adventure. And here we've just had a Sagittarius full moon on the Great Attractor. This was earlier in the month on June 3rd. Now we're having a new moon at 26 degrees Gemini in opposition to the galactic center at 27 degrees Sagittarius. I believe that this opposition, while I know oppositions are challenging dynamics, lately Spirit has shown me them as bridges that are being built between one dynamic and what appears to be its opposite, and yet at the same time they are cooperative energies. So when we think about the idea of Gemini, we go immediately to Mercury and information coming at us, short bits of information, little sound bites of information. Gemini and Mercury overall rules so much of our everyday activities, our emails, the things we read, the things we hear on the television, the media, our friendship circles, our everyday activities, running to pick up the kids from school, running to the market, all these kind of hamster wheel sometimes energies that we purport. I got to get this done. I got to get that done. Now, this new moon at 26 degrees is at the Taurian degree. And it's at the Taurus degree, Venusian degree, at those last degrees of, I always think that when we get to the last degrees, those signs that have three varying degrees that are assigned to them, which is really basically Aries through Leo. There's an offering of a mastering of an energy here, an awareness that allows me to make choices and to take actions in ways that are very Sagittarian. I want to say it that way, because as I look at this new moon in opposition to the galactic center is one point within the Shapley cluster where there is energies that are attracting, and each one attracts to the next point in the cluster, showing us and demonstrating from a scientific perception or perspective that this universe is primarily a universe of attraction versus efforting. So here, when I look at this new moon in opposition to this galactic center at 27 degrees of Sagittarius, 27 degree is the Gemini degree. The Gemini degree, again, is going to rule the kind of thoughts that have been imprinted on me, the kind of thoughts that I have learned to believe as a result of my everyday life, versus a broadening perspective where I conceive an idea and then focus my thought towards that idea and then start to create it. And I hope that makes sense, because when I talk about the bridge I feel like it's being gentle with my human mind as I take one step very consciously in a state of awareness about how do I want to show up for myself? How do I want my everyday activities to look? How do I want my personal energy, my brain and my body? What information do I want coming in? And is that information serving my broader perspective, or is it shutting me in? Is it closing me down? At the same time that the new moon is making an opposition to the galactic center, it's also making a square to Neptune at 27 degrees of Pisces. And Neptune has stationed at 27 degrees of Pisces. It will retrograde at the end of June. And so I believe that this is even accentuating the idea of, am I going to look at things from a spiritual point of view, or am I going to look at them from what my everyday activities require of me? Now, I, Teri Hunter, want to clarify what I believe spirituality is, because I hear that term a lot, and yet I think that it's like this huge net that many things can get within that net. So how I define spirituality is my personal awareness of the laws of the universe, the law of attraction, the law of allowing, the law of ebb and flow, the law that we are all one. And so as I engage my spirituality, I am engaging my awareness of my co-creation. And I'm willing to own that co-creation, whether it is tasteful or not. And when it is not, it gives me an opportunity to step back and assess, are my thoughts serving me? Am I inadvertently engaged in being right instead of being happy? Because they can be two different things. So as this new moon makes a square to Neptune, to me, this is a tense conversation between an old habitual way of being, more of a reactionary way of being, something that I'm very, very imprinted by and used to, and then a new concept that seems very favorable to me, and yet it is not rooted into my everyday experience. I must put an intention towards that. And so here, I believe that all of this is happening so that we can be aware of our mind. We won't judge the mind, we won't criticize the mind, but rather ask ourselves, do my thoughts serve the experience I want to have, or are my thoughts inadvertently blocking the ability for the universe to attract what I want to me? So when I came across this video, Pam Gregory had a discussion with a woman by the name of Julia Balaz. I've talked about her quite a bit lately because when she talked about the Shapley cluster, each one of the points, the galactic center, the supergalactic center, the great attractor, and then the Shapley attractor, I think it is, and they're all known as the Shapley cluster. This really resonated with me and my personal natal chart in a huge way. And it made me feel almost as if everything I had been thinking in theory, in the way of we manifest on our emotional body, we attract things to us because of the way we feel about them, what we believe about them, the viability of them, the opportunity or the obstacle that they may present. I felt like this was science backing up that theory, because each point talks about attracting to either the center, the galactic center, or the supergalactic center, this swirling energy. So I thought this was so fascinating. And here we are having this new moon in this cycle of the moon that has been turned upside down, that has gone into reverse, offering us an illumination before we plant our seeds in the darkness of the new moon. And now we're planting seeds in the darkness of our own mind. And that is Pluto's energy. But we're not talking about Pluto today, so we'll figure that out later. But here I also want to mention that on the day of the new moon, Saturn retrogrades. And when Saturn retrogrades, it is engaging in a square to Mercury at 11 degrees of Gemini. And this to me is just accentuating and reinforcing the idea that I'm becoming aware of how I am being pummeled with information. The material structures that man has built that tumble forward within our experiences rather than having a conscious choice about them. Anytime you're watching a television show and the commercials come on, you'll get an example of the pummeling. And if you pay attention to it, you'll see oftentimes they are playing to fear in order to engage. I mean, even when you see the Allstate mayhem guy, he's playing to fear. When you have the farmer's insurance guy putting out his hands, you're in good hands. Oh, it's Allstate, whatever it is. There is a way of trying to shape our minds. And now I think what's happening is a discernment. And that is what Saturn square to Mercury is offering us, to look at how our mind works 11 degrees, the Aquarian degree, to liberate ourselves, to invent or reinvent our thoughts that align with what we want to experience, and also to give life to that which we cannot see with our eyes, but yet what we can feel with our heart, because Mercury is making an exact sextile to Venus in Leo. She's at 11 degrees on the day of this new moon, again, accentuating the liberation that the Aquarian energy has to offer. And Aquarius, by nature, is the higher octave of thought. And we see, Mercury was around Uranus for a while it was hanging out in Taurus. And that's where you would see sort of our everyday thoughts and the Uranian liberation, the inventiveness, the forward futuristic thinking coming together in an awareness. And that period of time takes us into this new moon. And I believe that what's happening is we are starting to awaken from our slumber. We're starting to realize that we may not be here to actually learn lessons because someone thinks we didn't do it well enough, or because we've been somehow sinners or not good enough. This very much feels like Saturnian old structure. As we liberate ourselves from that old structure, we come to realize that we're like small children learning to ride a bike. If we never fell down, we wouldn't feel the confidence of moving forward as we become more capable and demonstrate more talent and prowess towards something. So here, I think this is about harnessing our minds. I think this is about harnessing, and then it's almost like a flexi leash, because we want to allow our mind to drift out, but we don't want it to go so far into a direction that it undermines what we want to experience. So I believe that as we are aware that Neptune is offering us an opportunity to connect with source energy, to imagine and muse on how it would feel when we are standing in that joy, in that pleasure, in that exhilaration, then the universe will start to align the components for that experience. And it'll be our job then to be brave enough to step through and to experience those things, regardless of how we at that time perceive the potential outcomes. I believe that at this time in history, the Aquarian age is not an age of time, but an age of perception, of possibilities, of evolvement as we evolve with our tools, technology being a tool that allows us more expansion, a larger reach. When I was growing up, this being able to reach people all around the world. I mean, and I don't know how many people around the world will see this video, but the possibilities are endless. And as we as humans start to see that and see the correlation between some of the things we've developed in our communication styles and the opportunities that are opening up for us as we walk through that dynamic mentally, and then we walk through it physically. We walk through it. When I say physically, that's when I feel a sense of inspiration coming through. So I think that this is a very powerful period of time. I think we're going to experience this flip in the moon cycle for about a year. and then it will revert back to the new moon, full moon. And I think over that year, we're also experiencing Jupiter transiting through Taurus, which is allowing us to expand our skills, expand our sense of self-worth, expand our sense of feeling a flow within our resources. So I feel like at the end of this next year or so, many of us will have kind of plugged into the truth of who we are and appear magical to others. And yet that's where we are the greatest service, is to allow the magical part of ourselves to be birthed, to be expressed, to be seen by others, and invite them to join us. And when they ask, how did you do this? You'll say, I didn't do the how. I did the feeling work first. So this is super exciting. So let's jump into the areas that this is potentially going to affect. Because again, it really depends on your natal chart and the varying dynamics within that chart itself. So for my Aries rising, this opportunity to plant new seeds of thought, to be aware of your habitual thoughts, your habitual conversation, and this opportunity to sort of take Neptune's energy and go into fantasy land. But is that really fantasy, or is it the very first entry into connecting with the universal laws about what you want to experience and calling those laws forth to attract to you the components of that experience? So this is going to be very powerful, because your ruling planet, Aries, spent 7 months in your third house. It spent, almost the whole backside of 2022 and the beginning of 2023 traversing through the house of the everyday mind, of the mind that is literally trained to think a certain way. So I think that this is a real opportunity to be a pioneer in your own head and to recognize any anger or resentment or frustration that you have. And is that actually serving you? Or can you broaden up to see that maybe the universe is bringing in an inspiration that you can't see, but you can feel with your heart when you calm your mind a bit? And this is not necessarily about going into meditation and trying to get an answer, as much as I feel like it's an awareness. Like I have my spidey sense up looking for that sign or that omen. And as it comes through, I feel a sense of support from the universe. All right, for our Tauruses, this is going to be your second house, meaning Gemini is your second house. This is the house you naturally rule. It's your skills. It's your sense of self-worth. It is your siblings, your teammates, your workmates, your ability to make money using your skills. So I believe that this could very well lead you into an energy where you venture out in a way you haven't before. We know Uranus is moving through your first house. We know Jupiter is moving through your first house. And this could very well be where you start to plant the seeds to watch yourself expand and grow because of your own talents and your own gifts. And as a result of that, you start to feel the benefit of attracting the resources you need, which help you become more confident and steady. And in doing so, you represent for those around you. It's very powerful. Gemini, this is going to be in your first house of self. And Gemini, you've gone through it a bit. Having Mars traversing your first house can be very challenging because Mars does not want to stay in one sign for very long. And Gemini by nature likes to move. It's the, Mercury zipping around the Zodiac. So I think what's going to happen for you is this opportunity to really reinvent yourself and to identify where potentially you're, sometimes when we weigh the pros and the cons of things, we don't realize that we're actually weighing the cons and the cons. We're assessing the difficulty of the situation versus the probabilities of it. So I think very much for my Geminis, this is about you re-engaging your own wants and desires, the things that you want to experience, and allowing yourself the privilege of that adventure. And at first it may feel as if, well, how am I going to do that? I can't, how am I going to get there? It's really not about the how. It's about the awareness that if I focus on the how, I'm focused on only things that humans can see. When I focused on how it feels, the excitement, the exhilaration, what is my intention for wanting to win the lottery? It's not the money. It's what the money would afford you in the way of freedom. Getting into those deeper layers of your own desires will really bring you into this bridge between this new moon and the galactic center, offering you an opportunity to realign yourself in a way that feels so authentic to you. So I think that's very powerful. For my Cancers, Gemini is your 12th house. This can be a little bit challenging because this can be where you don't even know that you're thinking thoughts that are undermining your experience. This is a place where the 12th house is a place where we feel unseen. It's a place where we spend time alone, and it has its own fears attached to it. It's a place we put people with mental illness in mental hospitals. We put kids in orphanages. We put old people in old folks' homes. And no matter how you can decode it, it doesn't often feel like we're really being present in that 12th house. There's this weird feeling of being sort of this earth and then somewhere else. So this particular new moon may illuminate for you thoughts that have undermined you, or habits of thought, or habits of feeling insecure in some ways. And now you're being tasked to really plant the seeds for a new experience. And that's where the Neptune square may feel difficult. And then Saturn, of course, is retrograding and making a square to Mercury in Gemini, which is also in your 12th house. So giving yourself sort of this, I want to offer it this way for my Cancers. I think that this new moon could be very well celebrated through the more creative dynamics of the 12th house, allowing yourself to be creative. Maybe it's you're wanting to make a good meal, sort of combining the energy of Cancer, the nurturer, the one that fuels and feeds those that it loves, and then Gemini, where you're allowing yourself the privilege of planting new seeds for how your everyday life will look. And as you do that, I think the universe will start to support that in ways that you can't see with your eyes, but you can feel with your heart. And again, I want to offer it this way because every time we have a new moon, it's 6 months until we get to the full moon of that same sign. So this is a cycle that will probably illuminate more manifestations by the time we get to Sagittarius season. So this could be very, very powerful for you. Now, for our Leos, Leo rising, this is in your 11th house of hopes and dreams. The 11th house by nature is a upachaya house. It rewards over time and through effort. It is naturally ruled by Aquarius, and that would be Uranus and Saturn. On the day of this new moon, Saturn is retrograding in Pisces. So I feel like this is a real opportunity for you to really reassess how you not just express yourself on the internet and how you're building this World Wide Web, but how do you feel about it? Are you creating this influencing dynamic? Are you expressing yourself in a way that you're excited about it? Or do you feel a sense of pressure of having to perform? Because I feel like this is an opportunity to realign yourself to yourself. And as you do, you can start to trust that those that are like you will be magnetized towards you, and that your audience or your subscribers or wherever you're expressing yourself will align and support your particular expression out into the world. I feel like this is very powerful for Leo because Leo, you've been having Pluto opposing the first degree, the 0 degree. Aquarius, Pluto has been in Aquarius at 0 degrees, and it's doing sort of an out of sign opposition, and that has triggered a fixed grand square between the nodes. So if you felt a little bit of pressure about really honoring the musings, the yearnings of your heart, if you've thought this is pie in the sky, who am I? Who's going to listen to me? That's a question that's undermining you. and it's diminishing you. And I feel as if, as you're brave enough to come from your heart and express the courage that Leo is sort of asked to express as the leader of the zodiac, you'll find more reward than you will find resistance. So I think this is important. For my Virgos, Gemini is your 10th house of career. There is a good opportunity here for you to plant the seeds for new endeavors within your career. The 10th house also rules our public status. So if you have been single and you get married, that would change your public status. If you've been childless and you have a child, that would change your public status. In the planting of this new moon, I think personally Virgo is being tasked to be aware of Mercury square to Saturn. And if inadvertently, with the square to the new moon square to Neptune and Mercury square to Saturn, does it stop you? Does it thwart your efforts? Does it make you feel as if you are overly dutiful and responsible to another person's agenda? Because that could very well be the new moon square to Neptune, that you are also a creative being, that you have many talents. And as you start to express the talents that make you feel alive and make you feel exhilarated and make you feel like you want to get up in the morning, that those are the things that can truly change how people have seen you be and inspire them to be brave within their own hearts. I think that this is a super powerful thing. We also know that Saturn is opposing Virgo. And so while it's only going to be from 0 to 7 degrees this year, that opposition can create a tense moment that allows you to start to build the bridge towards your dreams. Because if we think about the axis, we're looking at Pisces being your 4th house. And if for some reason your philosophies have changed, your sense of duty to others or you being of a practical nature has shifted a bit, and others are taken aback by your shift, especially those in your home environment, this is an opportunity for you to stand in service to them by allowing your dreams to be a priority, allowing the things that you want to be a priority, which will give you more energy to be of service to them down the line. Libra Rising, this is in your 9th house of philosophy, of foreign travel, of the 9th house by nature rules the Supreme Court. It rules business, it rules social sciences, it rules philosophies and ideologies, and studying master's degrees and higher education, as well as religion. So here, I think that Libra very well could be going through a transformation of how you're thinking. Sometimes when we talk about the social signs and the partnerships signs, they can be absorbed by the dynamic versus standing out as an individual amongst them. And one of the things that I talk about a lot with Libra is that the me actually serves the we. So when you let your me be absorbed by the we and you become overly complimentary or overly accommodating to a partnership, you actually weaken that partnership. So here, I think that you may find that part of this new moon is planting the seeds for you to feel more youthful, for you to express more curiosity about the things you're interested in, for you to venture out in your everyday life in ways maybe you haven't done before. Potentially you could be, an empty nester, and while you spent so much time caring for your children, now is an opportunity for you to care for your inner child and allow that to explore new things, fun new things. For my Scorpios, Gemini is your 8th house, which you naturally rule. So this is, to me, is very much going to kind of play to the idea of how much is my everyday life having power and control over me? Am I allowing the parties involved in my everyday life because I make a great salary or I don't make enough money and I really need that job? I think this is an opportunity for Scorpio to really sort of dig deep into what is important to you, what you Scorpio is such an amazing sign. I mean, I really kind of think of you as the most savory, I like the intensity of Scorpio. I like the honesty of Scorpio. Yeah, have I been stung a couple times by Scorpio? My own Mercury in Scorpio? Yes. But Scorpio is brave by nature, and brave enough to be a criminal sometimes. But I'm not really, I don't want to go to the toxic energy of Scorpio, because everything needs its toxic release. And now I want to go to the transformation, the Phoenix rising, the illuminations that you have garnished as you've suffered, as you have experienced the South Node through your first house, really asking you to be egoless, meaning how much am I going to let somebody else's opinion govern me and what I want and I desire. I think being egoless is an awareness of the human ego. It's not an eradication of it or a release of it. It's an awareness of it. So now I can start to use the ego as the tool it was given to me to be. You know, if it's asking me, are you sure? It's an opportunity for me not to look at it as the town crier telling me I'm not good enough, but to make sure that my intentions are aligned with my truth. That's what Scorpio rules, the deepest of truth and the most savory, intimate connections. So you could very well see at this time of this new moon birthing a whole new dynamic of how you're thinking and how you're feeling. And I kind of feel as if Scorpio might keep this to themselves in the beginning. I don't want to really share my new philosophies. I don't want people to know I'm studying astrology because they may think I'm in voodoo land. And yet the more you study varying concepts that empower you, the more you feel in control of your life. And the control is not because it's always going the direction you want it to go. It's because you recognize that disruption could be a divine energy that is realigning you in case you veered off track. All right, Sagittarius, this new moon is in your house of partnerships, the 7th house. This is also not just intimate partnerships, it's all contractual partnerships, all the kind of things where we say we are coming together in a legal situation. So I think this will be an opportunity to plant new seeds in how you are interacting with others in a way that kind of plays to that full moon we had in Sagittarius. That was on the great attractor. And if I remember correctly, it was at 14 degrees Scorpio. Is that correct? Yes. The moon was at 13 degrees and the great attractor was at 14 degrees. So I want to offer this for my Sagittarius because as you experience that full moon, which was an illumination of some kind, I believe that this is now giving you an opportunity to sort of use the energy of the great attractor, to use the idea that this universe is really one that is an invitation for experiences to come to us versus efforting out to create those experiences. And I want to offer it this way for my Sagittarius is because when I look at the 7th house and I see the partnerships, I also see a house that represents diplomacy and harmony and cooperation and is ruled by Venus naturally. It's a place where I want to feel comfort and a sense of ease with my resources. I want to sit on a warm, cozy couch with a fuzzy blanket, and eat a nice, watch a movie and eat popcorn or something that I enjoy. And I feel like this is part of what Sagittarius gets to sort of reflect upon. Am I really experiencing the things that bring my heart joy within my partnerships? How am I operating? Am I allowing myself to be diverse in my partnerships? Am I allowing myself to grow in my partnerships? Am I allowing my philosophies and my ideologies about partnership to expand? So I think this is super powerful. For my Capricorns, Gemini is your 6th house of health, of service to others, of our pets. And, it's a house of stress. It's a house where we feel a sense of duty and obligation to get a job done. And here I want to offer it this way because my Capricorns of all people have been going through such an awareness of themselves and an awareness of themselves in relation to their history and their experiences on this planet. So I believe that this new moon in Gemini, especially with the square to Pisces, and your ruling planet going retrograde on the same day as the new moon is giving you an opportunity to truly reflect and be willing to put in the time and the effort to have the awareness of, when I build, am I allowing myself not only the action out, but then allowing the inspiration in? Meaning, as you take action, if you get too caught up in the action, you could default to an old patterned way of being. And your awareness and your consciousness of that old pattern will allow you to shift back in a way that then attracts things to you, that then inspire you into action. We're never going to sit into no action, but when we take action based on fear, lack, or uncertainty, we muddy our results. So I think that's going to be very powerful. And I do think that this is going to be an opportunity for you to allow yourself to calm your mind down a little bit, to be aware of your fears or to be aware of your projection of fears, and identify whether or not they'll actually happen in the real life or they're just something that you're musing about, a possibility. We see a lot of possibilities in our advertising world. The commercials we see on TV, well, they've gone from possibilities to them predicting them to be an inevitability. So here, I think this is about discernment and then taking the beautiful energy of Saturn and having the tenacity to move forward as you evolve past this box that you've been put in and you're expanding into a place that's more authentic to you. Aquarius, this is going to be, this new moon in Gemini is happening in your 5th house of romance, personal pleasure and fun and frivolity and hobbies and summertime. The Pacific, we're in the summertime right now. So I want to offer this because the square to Neptune would be a square to your creativity. And Aquarius, one of the shadow sides of Aquarius is the feelings of anxiety that come up, the feelings of alienation or being sort of outside the human experience. And to me, this is really the good news because you're really more aware of the truth of who you are. But you know, we're human beings in this body and we want connection with others. So I feel like this new moon squaring Neptune and opposing the galactic center in Sagittarius, well, it feels a little tense and rocky and a little bit difficult. I think if anybody has the capability of building that bridge, it's Aquarius. So I feel like you're being tasked to think outside the box here. I think you're being tasked to think outside the square and the opposition, that there's lots of people who are expressing themselves in their most authentic ways. And as you give life to that and you allow that to be birthed into your everyday experience, and not necessarily in a way of defiance, but rather, I'm different, you're different, so we can all be our own selves and find commonality within that. I think you're going to find the potentials for, you know, do I want to say romance? The conception of a child, you could conceive a child if you're childbearing years, but really more so, I think this is about your own personal enjoyment at this time and redefining that in a way that becomes inspiring for you. And finally, this new moon for our Pisces rising is in your 4th house of home, of the family, where you were raised, your experience with your mom, or I should say the parent that was less visible to those around you. Oftentimes we think of the 10th house as being very visible, and the visible parent can be in the 10th house. That's just a side note. But for my Pisces, I want to offer this because you have Saturn in your 1st house and it is retrograding on the same day of the new moon. And we have your ruling planet, Neptune, at 27 degrees squaring this new moon. And that's 27 degrees Pisces. So this, to me, for my Pisces, is sort of a reflection on your history, a reflection on the rules and regulations that have been thrust upon you. This is an opportunity also for you to sort of redefine your own creative imagination and decide, you know, if I can dream it, I can be it. And if I can be it, I'm going to claim it. And I think that's really powerful, because I think that in this particular case, that fourth house to me feels like where you feel at home with yourself and your creativity. And when I think about the fourth house, it's literally, the southernmost point in the chart. So it's literally holding up all the other houses. And as Pisces surrenders to your creativity, to your sense of, I kind of think of this way. When I think of Pisces, I imagine, a young girl in her room singing, wanting to be Taylor Swift, or somebody who's gone into their studio to produce art or to create music. And as you give life to all of this, I think you're going to feel more at home and feel more a sense of your, and I'm going to use the broad term spirituality, but again, that is defined by an intention and an awareness of my thoughts being things, and my awareness that there are divine laws of this universe. And when I implement those laws of the universe, I benefit from those laws of the universe. So it's a very, very, very powerful new moon for me, because it's really sort of illuminating where I am kind of been imprinted, been sort of I've been trained to feel, think, and to operate in a certain way. And then the square to Neptune is offering me a new way of being, a way that's more compassionate to my own heart, that's playing to my talents and my skills. Because as Teri Hunter, an intuitive astrologer, I have been shown by Spirit repeatedly, this is not a school. This planet is not to teach you anything. You're not here to pay back your karma from previous lifetimes. You come back over and over again because you're ready to master your own co-creation. And if you didn't have a hill to climb, that co-creation would not feel as exhilarating. And the hill to climb is that mind that is imprinted by the human experience that limits our possibilities. And this new moon wants to open up our possibilities as we are aware of the imprint. And rather than trying to release the imprint or to exterminate the imprint, we give life that the imprint is the very tool that defines the contrast of what we want. If I hadn't felt boxed in here, I wouldn't feel so open over here. It's kind of beautifully set up when we don't fight our divine disruption and our challenges. So that's it for me for this new moon in Gemini. I hope you enjoy it. Again, be mindful of Saturn's influence, because Saturn is really not here to throw you under the bus. Saturn just wants to illuminate a little bit of history for you so that you can make an informed and intentional choice. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer. And if you'd like to get a reading from me, I am available. You can reach out to me. My information is below in the description, and I'll send you all the information and my rates. And please join me on Sunday mornings live at 11 a.m. Pacific time. That's where we get the angels' advice and we do a tarot reading for the upcoming week's transits. So thank you so much, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful new moon, and I'll see you soon. Peace out.